All right, we are back. This is the Dream is Free podcast. I'm your host, Jake Healy. Our other host and super producer is Mike Theophil.
What's going on, everybody?
We also have the best intern in the world here,
Yes.
Renee.
Hey, Renee.
Shout out to Renee. And our guest today is Michael Vitulano. He is a clinical psychologist, and he specializes in resilience and positivity, and he works in professional development, coaching, and a whole bunch of different things that he's going to tell us about today. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks so much for having me, Jake. I'm really excited to talk about something that I'm passionate about.
Awesome. The music's still on, Mike.
I know. I was just vibing for a second.
Yeah. So, thank you for coming on. We
thank
really
you.
appreciate it. We're looking forward to learning about resilience, and like we were just saying, like what a great time to be learning more about this for everybody that's going to be listening.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's the perfect time that everybody needs some resilience in their life, especially after the past year, and then looking forward to this year. So, with that being said, we run this kind of as like a discussion. So, if you need a break and you want us to start talking, we'll pick up on it and we will.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think I'm good.
Cool.
I'll let you know.
But we'll just ask questions and you can take it from there. So, I guess let's start with like how you got into the psychology field. You have a PhD, which is very impressive. If you want to tell us like how you got into everything and what direction.
Yeah. What made you want to go this route, basically? Young Michael.
That's a great question. I've always been kind of interested in working with kids. I've always been interested in like the human mind. I thought it was fascinating studying it in school. But I was a camp counselor. I was a sports coach and loved sports growing up. And about my junior year of college, I took a job at a camp for kids. And it was called the Hole in the Wall Gang Camp, and it's a special camp for kids with, for sick kids, for kids with a chronic or terminal illness. And it was right around the time where my friends were going off and getting like these competitive internships and going to work for banks and things like that. Yeah. Your junior year of college, trying to prepare yourself for the future. Mm-hmm. And I thought about that and talked to some people, and that was right around the time I was like, I don't want to do that. That's not for me. And so I took this summer camp counselor position and just fell in love with it, fell in love with the field of medicine, and then ultimately took a job in Boston that prepared me for graduate school. It was a research position at Mass General Hospital, and it kind of springboarded me into a psychology PhD program.
Awesome.
So that's how I got into it, yeah.
And what's your PhD like? What was your specialization for the PhD?
So the PhD program is clinical psychology PhD. And then within that program and my training afterwards, I specialized in child psychology. So I'm a clinical child psychologist.
Awesome. What was your, you have to write a thesis, right? To finish your PhD?
Yeah.
That's part of it?
I actually wrote a thesis and a dissertation. So the thesis to get my master's, and then the dissertation to get my doctorate. So I wrote a couple long papers.
Yeah, I bet. And that was all in child psychology. Like, was that when you got into the resilience side of everything?
It was in child psychology. I guess it was kind of the early stages. It was about why some kids grow up to develop kind of what we think of as negative outcomes, specifically substance abuse in the teenage years, and why some kids go on the path where they don't.
Got it. It's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. Honestly, when Jake told me we had you on, I was excited because I was psych undergrad.
Okay.
Which I didn't even choose, to be honest. They just chose it for me. But the one thing I do remember was the child psych part, what I call remembering. And, it's like the subconscious mind, the first 7 years are so detrimental. So let's get it rocking and rolling.
And then from there, so you finished up your PhD and you started working in like a clinical setting.
After my PhD program, you have to do a residency year, which is similar to medical doctors where they apply for their 3-year residency. We do a 1-year residency, but it's the same process. You have to do a matching program where you apply, interview, and then rank in order your choices. The choices rank you,
Right.
in order, and then a computerized program matches you, and then on one excruciating anxiety morning, you
Find out where you're
find
going.
out your match. It's called match day. It's a big, it can be an exciting day or it can be a miserable day.
Is it a good day for you?
It was both. I actually, funny story was my first year, I applied a year early and got a few interviews, and I did not match. That was a devastating day. And then, ironically, the next year I applied, I got my first choice, which was UCLA.
Oh, nice.
So I went from like the bottom, the worst possible outcome, because all my friends matched, and they were all talking about where they were going. And I kind of like put my head down and like it was embarrassing to tell to celebrate with my classmates and friends, and then to tell them that I was disappointed that I didn't match. And then the next year I got my first choice. So I guess things worked out.
I mean, that's the first part of resiliency right there in your
Right.
career, right? Jeez.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the story was the reason why I applied a year early was because my professor that I went to work in their lab, she left. She got a better job offer. Her name's Paula Fight. I love you, Paula. Shout out Paula
Yeah,
Fight.
shout out Paula.
She's an amazing child aggression and resilience researcher. She's now at Kansas, which is the top child program in the country, one of the top programs in the country. And she was like, well, why don't you just apply and
Take my spot.
finish the program? And I was like, all right. Yeah, so it ended up working out in the long run though. So
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's sick.
And then how did you get into like the resilience specialty?
well, fast forward, like when I finished my training, which was a lot. It was that next year, and then I did a 2-year fellowship at Seattle Children's, and I just felt like, so most psychologists, if you go to them, they'll tell you what's wrong with you.
Right.
And I kind of wanted to be that psychologist that would tell you what's right with you. So I wanted to like change the game, so to speak, and focusing on strengths and positive qualities rather than identifying problems and tell you what your problems are and try to fix problems. If you're looking for something, you're probably going to find it. So if you're looking for a problem, you're probably going to find a problem. But if you're looking for the positives and the strengths in people, you're going to find those too. And so I felt like, why don't we change the game and promote people's strengths? Because like there's a lot of research that if you play to your strengths, you're going to be much more effective, like at your job. Like if your job is in line with like what you're good at, rather than doing the things that you suck at, you're going to be much more successful and much happier.
Right. Awesome.
Like you wouldn't put your best player, at their weakest position.
Yeah.
Right on the field.
No, it's so true.
Yeah.
Nobody really talks about that actually. Like everybody, like you said, like wants to focus on the negatives when fixing something that's wrong with anybody. You find the problem, right? You don't like search those positive qualities about them. It's like, all right, well, what are you good at? Besides like, oh no, you're trash at all these things. It's a good way to start, at least, I think.
Yeah, it's like just focus on like gratitude for what you are good at, on your strengths, and then what about working on the problems?
So gratitude is huge, and we can talk about that. But I think both is important. Not to say that we don't have problems and weaknesses and they shouldn't be worked on. But I think my field of psychology does a really terrible job of focusing like 90% of our effort on the problems and how to fix them, and not really like if you look at a report or an evaluation, you see like 1 sentence or 2 sentences on strengths and resilient qualities in people. Funny story, when I met my my girlfriend's mother, I told her what I did, and I was like, I'm a psychologist, and she was like, a psychologist? Why would I need a psychologist? Why would I pay someone to tell me I'm crazy? And I'm like, no, that's not the perception like that I want for our field, but it kind of has been over the years.
Yeah.
Yeah. As soon as you think about going to see a psychologist, you're like,
You're paying someone to tell you that you're crazy.
Yeah.
It's also one of these things like a lot of people don't like talking about, like you don't like. It's something that's not open, right? People aren't always like, yo, like I see a therapist or a psychologist. It's almost like this thing that's like swept under the rug. You don't talk about. Some people are open about it, but I just find it's like one of those things where it's like going to therapy is almost like shameful or embarrassing,
Yeah.
I think it has been for a number of years, especially in men. There's a huge stigma
Right.
with everybody. I think more so in men. Interestingly, the younger generation, like teenagers and younger people in their 20s, it's like there's a bigger movement to be like proud of getting help and talking about things and being vulnerable. I had a patient that was big into like slam poetry and talked, very, teenage patient talked like very open and empowering about, mental health and things like that.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
It's definitely becoming more and more talked about and like an open thing, which is nice to see. Like our age group and probably your age group too. It was like, don't show any emotion, just stuff it deep down inside and just hope that it goes away. Yeah. And then tell us about like if somebody comes to see you, right? Like what's the process of everything? Like how do you help people specifically?
So as a psychologist, so I kind of wear two hats, or my business that I'm starting is two separate entities, but they merge together really, really nicely. And as a psychologist, which is my many years of training, so I have a private practice, and people will come to me usually based on a referral. Somebody in the community, either they're usually the primary care doctor, or it could be somebody else, will come in for an evaluation and therapy. So we could meet and do a first session. It's like an interview with some data gathering, and then they'll want a therapist. But I also do psychological testing, which is like a neuropsychological evaluation where you do testing for cognitive ability, academic achievement, your reading, your writing, your math, and those kinds of academic skills, as well as some emotional and personality functioning stuff. So I can do like a full comprehensive battery of tests if there's questions that need to be answered, for like diagnostic clarity or things like that. And then I just do consultations. So like if you wanted a second opinion, you were going to see a doctor for like years and you just wanted a second opinion about something, people will just do like a one-time consultation and ask for my clinical professional opinion.
Is all the testing that you do, that's like where you bring up like the personality testing, cognitive testing, like what people's strengths are, rather than saying like, hey, these are your weaknesses? That's where you try to focus more on the strengths of everything?
Exactly. So you get a score that's standardized against like the average of all people. So you could see how you fit in the general population compared to the world, or people of your age group, I guess. But you could also see within your own abilities what your best abilities are. So that would be something. So you might be really good at processing information. That could be like a cognitive strength. Yeah.
Awesome.
And that's actually good too, because it's like, are there people that like, do you usually have clients? Sometimes you have clients that like don't know some of their strengths, and then that's actually like a new thing for them. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that a lot of people, come to me, and when I give them the feedback, they sometimes know, they're like, oh yeah, I knew I was good at that. But sometimes it can be like a surprise to them or their family, or yeah.
Nice.
Awesome. What do you recommend for building resilience, right? So like what are the traits that come along with it? How do you like get better at being how does somebody
resilient?
Become a more resilient person?
Yeah.
That's a great question, and also one that I had myself. And so I started a YouTube channel on that,
nice.
which is just my name, Michael Vitulano, and I try to talk about scientifically supported factors that increase or help build resilience. And going back historically, resilience was once thought about an inborn or a fixed trait. Like some people are born resilient. It was like, genetics. Why do some people who experience trauma go on to develop, problems throughout their life? And then why do some people not, or, overcome it, or kind of bounce back from it? But all the research now is leading to that it is a skill, kind of like a muscle that can be built. And there's ways to enhance or develop your resilience.
Resilience is basically just like your ability to adapt to stress, pretty much?
Yeah, I would say adapting to stress or negative events in your life, whether they're big or small. It could be something big like losing a job or something terrible or a death of somebody close to you, or it can be a minor setback, a stressful week at work, or having a stressful time in your life. I guess that wouldn't necessarily be minor, but it could be,
Right.
Or a stressful day at work. And so how well you when you get knocked down or you have a difficult time, how well you get back up, so to speak, and really like persevere and continue working towards your goals and continue functioning. So yeah, kind of the ability to bounce back in the face of stress and adversity.
Okay, got it. That's what I was
Yeah,
thinking
so we're
of.
on the same page of what
Yeah.
we're
Yeah,
talking
yeah,
about.
yeah.
It's good for the listeners to know.
Yeah.
Because that word gets thrown around a lot, and I think a lot of people use it in different ways, but that's the way that I think about things.
Nice.
And then, so if somebody wants to become a more resilient person, it's because sometimes it's not really a choice, right? Like you just go through, something happens to you in life, right? And you get through that, and that makes you a more resilient person, right? But I would imagine there's ways to prepare for things that you need to be ready for to be more resilient for. So is there ways to strengthen that? Is that just like adding in hardships to your own life on purpose?
I guess
Well, it's a good point. Like,
Yeah, no,
I
yeah.
guess it can be, yeah.
you like harder workouts,
Yes.
stressing yourself out more
Yes.
mentally, I guess.
Yeah, so challenges that are manageable do promote resilience.
Okay.
So in the face of challenges that are manageable for you, when you overcome them or endure them or just experience them, they do promote your resilient ability. Think about it. Well, I faced that difficulty or that hardship or that thing that was unpleasant or really sucked. I know that I can do it again. And I think there is a lot of research on factors or things that promote resilience, and that's what I'm trying to highlight and disseminate to the world through my YouTube channel. Is that there are ways that you can help yourself and help kids to become more resilient. So one of them is allowing kids or allowing yourself to experience challenges that are manageable and overcome them.
So basically let your children go through their own hardships without you like jumping in trying to help.
that are manageable.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Manageable challenges.
That's the key there.
Yeah.
It's like I want to emphasize the manageable.
So things that are, that are safe, and that are relatively manageable.
Which would be like
what that is
sports,
debatable.
stuff like that. Like
Sure, I think losing in sports is great.
I agree.
I lost in sports. I got cut from basketball teams in 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade. Made it in 9th grade, cut in 10th grade, 11th grade, and I think that made me a better person.
Yeah. I hate all that the cookie cutter stuff. Like, oh, I'm in last place. Here's a trophy. It's like, I didn't win anything. I'm still a loser. Like, let me be a loser and then be a winner one day.
Yeah, Mike, he has a background in college sports too. He played basketball at UB.
I got cut 7th grade. I'll never forget it. My mom picked me up. Tomlinson, shout out Tomlinson. Cried my eyes out. I never played basketball really. We played baseball and wrestling, and that's it really. Yeah. And worked my ass off that whole year though, and then started. And obviously, I played college basketball, but there's some resiliency.
Yeah, once when he got cut, he literally went to Wakeman.
Psycho.
6 hours a day. Like
Yeah.
he got out of school and he went straight to Wakeman and just played basketball until 10 o'clock at night.
My first shoes were those like dad New Balances. Like that's how like far out of the game I was back then. But yeah.
That's awesome. I was also a Tomlinson basketball cut.
Nice.
Oh.
Yeah.
So was I.
And so was Matt, dude. Game one of our downtime guys. That's so epic.
Yeah. And then I went to I played freshman at Fairfield Prep, and then I got cut again.
It's tough there though.
But it made me a better. I ended up being a lacrosse player and played college lacrosse. So
Nice.
I think it made me a better lacrosse player in the long run.
It's similar sports too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They are.
Yeah.
It's all team focused. and
Yeah.
everything.
Totally.
Yeah. I've always liked one-on-one
sporting events.
more
Yeah,
for some reason. I don't know.
you don't have to rely on anyone.
Yeah,
It's all on you.
Yeah, it makes the wins not as great and the losses very hard.
What do you,
resiliency.
what do you play?
I mean, mostly right now I'm like really into jujitsu, right?
If you guys couldn't tell watching,
yeah,
the shiner.
nice black eye right now. But that's like that one-on-one competition. Team stuff, like I enjoyed playing basketball when we were younger, but I didn't play like college sports or anything.
Runner.
Yeah, run a lot. Like that's kind of you against yourself. For me, at least. Like I'm not a competitive marathon runner or anything. So it's kind of just going through that. Done some long 50-mile race and stuff like that. So, which I think helped build some resilience.
Yeah, that's a challenge.
Yeah, getting through that and like the discipline of training for it. Yeah, is that a factor in everything? Discipline.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask that too.
Yeah, I think I use this metaphor on my website. I have a picture of a mountain climber, and I think about perseverance being a resilient quality. In hiking or climbing a mountain, you're just putting like one foot in front of the other over and over again until you reach the top, and also relying on like teammates and hiking partners. So when you need when the terrain gets tough. Asking for help or relying on your teammates is an important resilient quality, whether you're climbing a mountain or just in your life.
So I'm assuming with resilience, like knowing when to reach out and ask for help is a big piece of it, right?
Absolutely. I think, having connections to people that can be helpful. So for kids, parents are like the number one factor that promote resilience. So having a strong bond, a good relationship with your kids, and kids knowing that they're loved like unconditionally is like the number one factor that promotes resilience in kids. And for adults, having mentors or having people that you can look to for guidance and training. I had many mentors in my career, and I still go to colleagues for consultation when there's something that I'm unclear about. I call up or have a meeting with other professionals in the field, and I kind of just bounce ideas off of. And I don't know if you guys used like any sort of mentorship to get this podcast running, but or
probably a lot. Yeah.
I mean, throughout the years, yeah. I mean, and then like honestly, at SHU we Brian Thorne. Jake knows Brian Thorne. Like the reason why you see this set so beautiful is because he always emphasized, the more professional and clean and beautiful everything looks, the more comfortable the guest feels. You know what I mean? We know what the fuck we're doing, even if we don't. So yeah, that's definitely true. And Paul Paps and Dr. Miller, shout out them, but Thorny, numero uno.
Mike went to Sacred Heart for sports
media
communication media. So like that's where he learned like all like the setup for everything. Renee is finishing up right now.
She's an undergrad right now.
Yeah.
Congrats, Renee. Weird last year for you.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, we had a ton of help, like definitely learning how to set everything up, and then a lot of it we just have figured out along the way. Yeah, a lot of trial and error.
Yes. Yeah. You should have seen the mics we got first. They were all wrong.
Yeah.
All of them. Like, I ordered one wrong. Ordered another one wrong. Ordered a third one almost right, and then we got it on the fourth.
We're willing to help mentor people though that are trying to set up a podcast studio.
Oh yeah.
For sure. Yeah. A couple people.
Yep.
So I guess there's really two ways to become more resilient. One is go through it, figure out yourself, right? That's probably the harder path. Or if you know somebody that's been through it, getting help with them.
Yeah. So I definitely think establishing connections, mentors are so important. If you want to do something, there's probably someone else out there that's doing what you're doing or doing something similar to what you want to do. So finding them and picking their brain and not just kind of going through it alone. Like there's no reason to go, like we're social creatures. There's no reason to go through life alone. And there's no reason to struggle and with something that if you're trying to start a business or trying to reach a goal, find someone else out there that is doing what you want to do and talk to them and get them, make a connection with them.
Yeah, from doing this podcast, like we've talked to a ton of people and made like amazing connections with people. Definitely picked some mentors up along the way. Learned a lot about ourselves and about other people too. And it's amazing to find how willing people are to help another person that, you know, all you have to do is ask.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like people usually want to help other people, you know, and like if you just ask for that help, whatever it is, most of the time, like you get a yes and the information that you're looking for. But it's
funny, because like, you know, usually people would be scared to, you know what I mean? Ask for help, you know, it's like a, you know, back to what you were saying before, like it's an old school thought process, maybe even more in males, like don't talk, you know, you know everything kind of a mantra or mindset. And it's like, totally agree. Asking for help is the best thing you could do. You know what I mean? If you don't have the answers, there's nothing wrong. Closed mouths don't get fed.
Yeah.
You know?
It's the hardest thing to do sometimes, is ask for help.
Yeah.
Until you ask for help.
Yeah.
and then you realize that it's pretty easy.
Yeah. And everybody needs help. That's the other thing. It's not just, you know, everybody at some point in life needs help, and that's okay.
Yeah. And I think that, you know, kindness is so contagious. And you would be surprised, like if you ask for it, you'd be surprised to find out how kind people can be.
I mean, just from this show, it's helped me. That's a thing that's helped me realize is how kind people actually are. Because, you know, you get fucked over a lot in your life and like constantly. So you're like, I mean, I trust anybody who I meet right off rip, you know, fool me once, fool me twice bullshit. But, you know, you're more on guard though with who you really let into your circle. And then through this experience, it's just been like, wow, actually there are people, like you said, kindness is contagious. You know, we're kind, so I feel like we've been attracting the kindness as well. So it's a good point. It really is.
Yeah. Let's talk about like saying kindness is contagious. Positivity is also one of the things that's very contagious. So is negativity, right? So like if you're in a room full of people that like somebody starts acting negative, it spreads quickly. Like you
wildfire.
can see it. Like when you're having a conversation with multiple people, as soon as something negative comes up, you could see the conversation go down that negative path. And on the flip side, if you're around positive people, you're a more positive type of person.
Definitely. They've actually done studies on this, and they show that when a boss walks into the room, if he walks in with like he or she walks in with a negative attitude, that the room responds to that, and they measured people's heart rates, and heart rates will start to go up. And if he walks in with like a kind, warm, positive, he or she walks in with a kind, warm, positive presence, they see like the calmness of the room measuring people's heart rates. So positivity is contagious biologically.
It's epic.
So yeah, you know, I've been reading doing a lot of leadership work and studying some of this stuff, and positivity is contagious with leadership and bosses.
Yeah, I noticed that at work too. So I have a team of a few people that I work with, and like my goal is always to just be the calmest one in the room at all times. So like I work with a couple
Mission
people.
accomplished.
I work with a couple people that get very, very, very worked up. You know, actually, I'm surrounded by people who are worked up all the time.
You are,
and then I just try to bring them back to like center. You know.
Nice, me too.
So that's always been my goal.
Jake's an adult psychologist right now in that environment.
Yeah, my goal at work, like with my team, is like, as the leader, just to be the calmest one. So like if there's a problem, something comes up, it's not like shit's hitting the fan, everybody goes crazy. Like I'm like, it's gonna be okay. We're gonna figure it out, and then I just walk people through it.
Do you use any like strategies or anything to help you maintain that calmness?
I guess just like
Great
my outlook on life basically is just that, especially at work, right? It's not like nobody's dying, you know, it's not the end of the world if something goes wrong with a mortgage, right? Like we do everything we can to make sure everything goes right. But at the end of the day, it's work, it's a job. You know what I mean? Like I'm still alive. Everybody I work with is still alive, happy, healthy, you know? So it's just kind of like
Have a job.
Yeah. We have a job, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. So like you were saying before, like I just try to focus on the positive things in life, and it makes, if there's any negative things, and not seem that bad, you know? So that's, I guess, a good point. Like everybody has ups and downs. Everybody goes through a lot of the same things, but it's just how you look at life and focus on the positive stuff.
Yeah, and that can be tough because our brains are actually defaulted to see the negative in life, like where it's more salient, it's more obvious, and the positive stuff tends to be more hidden. I mean, it's there if you look for it,
Right.
but it's effortful. You'll default, like if you're stuck in traffic and somebody like cuts you off in like a big SUV, you're thinking like like F that guy and stuff like that. Or you're in a long line and you're trying to wait, and it's just taking forever. Your default is to complain and get frustrated, and so it's an effortful choice to try to focus on cognitive things. They're there. If you look hard enough, they're there. But our default is to be we're the center of the universe. We're self-centered, both like literally and physically, because we only see from our perspective. We don't see from the other people's perspective. And then that guy that cut you off could be rushed into the hospital.
Yeah,
you don't know that. He could have a sick kid in the car.
Or he could just be an asshole.
But you don't know. The thing about it is you don't know.
You don't know, right?
Yeah.
So it's a good metaphor for life. You don't know what anybody else is going through ever, right?
So it's hard to find the positive in things. It's a challenge, but I challenge people to try to do it and look for it, because if you do look for it, positivity and like beauty is there all around us, but it's not always so obvious, right?
I mean,
I think the true test of like your personality, right? Like who you are as a person is how you react in your car.
Totally.
Like it's so true, right? Like I cut somebody off by accident one day on Fairfield Avenue, and he was flying behind me. I moved over too fast to try to duck around another car, and like then he ripped up behind me and rolled his window down, and like I could see how angry he was. And he started yelling already, and we were at a light, so there's like it wasn't like he could just keep going. And like your first reaction when somebody yells "you mother effer," like something like that, is to yell back at them, right? Because it's just like you feel threatened. And I was just like, I'm so sorry. That's what I said through the car window. I was like, my apologies, I cut you off, I'm very sorry about that. And he was like, he was speechless, and then he was like, all right. And then that was it. We just kept going, But yeah, it's like when you're in your car, Louis C.K. does that, like a whole bit about how you wouldn't talk to somebody in an elevator like you would talk to somebody in your car. Like, and you feel like you're like untouchable in your car. He says like, you worthless piece of shit. He's like, you wouldn't be in an elevator and somebody nudges into you and you turn to their face and go, you worthless piece of shit,
Oh, it's funny. Muhammad Ali even says, I don't trust the person who is nice to me but treats the server like shit. You know what I mean? Because, it's that same kind of like, what if I was the server?
Right.
Yeah,
treat everybody with respect.
Yeah.
Janitor to CEO, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But we were just talking about before I went on that tangent.
Seeing positivity in the world.
Positivity in the world, right.
Gratitude. So the challenge is if you're defaulted to see the negative, because it's more obvious, and we think the world revolves around us because we only see things from our perspective. How can you see the positive in the world? And one of the best ways that I know is something that you brought up is gratitude. And there's tons of really good research coming out that complaining just makes you feel worse and worsens your mood. But gratitude, taking time out of the day to appreciate what you have and writing it down and just kind of like thinking about it, can help you feel better in less than 2 weeks. And there's also a cool study that in 2018, the authors Desteno said that gratitude actually increases your willpower to do hard tasks. So if you're looking at something challenging in your life, try a little gratitude, and the research is there that you can actually accomplish your goals and your difficult tasks through that.
Yeah, I mean, having that negative mindset doesn't help when you're facing adversity, right? It's like I'd much rather have a positive, grateful, gratitude-based mindset when something hard comes up and be like, okay, we could figure this out, rather than start complaining, and it never does any good. I agree.
Yeah. Another resilient quality is realistic optimism, which I talked about in my last video that I did, and it's kind of what you said. It's having a positive outlook with challenges. So seeing challenges as like almost a puzzle or something to be solved, or I guess seeing a problem as a challenge. This kind of goes along with that. If you guys have heard about growth mindset, that's a pretty hot topic right now, and it's seeing challenges as not permanent, but like a puzzle that you can solve. So having a realistic, optimistic attitude can convey hope. Like we can get through this. We're gonna this is a problem that we're gonna solve. We're gonna think about it. It's gonna be a challenge, but being realistic. Like some things just suck in life.
Right.
And to be, optimistic all the time kind of invalidates people's struggles and difficult times. So sometimes, like, you just got to sit there and be like, wow, like, sit there with somebody and be like, yeah, this sucks and this is terrible, and kind of like almost like lean into negative things and negative, emotions and things like that. So it's tricky.
Like tackling it head on almost, right? You're saying with those.
With like negative, with like
Yeah.
truly negative things.
Yeah, like
that
a
happen to people.
yeah.
You have to acknowledge when there's just bad stuff going
Yeah.
on.
Yeah.
Like you could be as positive as you want, but like at some things that happen in life, like you just have to be like, this is not a great thing, and you have to deal with. You can't just be like, I'm a positive for
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's why I talk about like realistic optimism, because you wouldn't say like, cheer up to a friend that has just lost like a loved one.
Right.
You want to sit there and like,
it'll be okay. Give them a
yeah,
slap
just like,
on the back, yeah.
put a smile on, telling someone who's depressed, just put a smile on your face. You don't have it as bad as, someone else. That's obviously going to be greatly invalidating. But, as a leader of a company or a business, when things, don't go the way of your business, being optimistic and conveying hope to your team, like I think can in a realistic way, this sucks and we can get through it, can be really resilient for you as a leader and for the team and the business.
Yeah, I mean I agree. How much do you focus on like the business coaching? Is that like something that you're trying to build up, or?
Yeah, that's something that I'm building up right now. I'm working with a few clients, and I do both. So leadership development, like working with bosses and executives, and also I do career development. So younger people, younger professionals, just out of college, mostly first few years in the workforce, and kind of thinking about where they want to go with their careers, where they want to focus their efforts, and helping them basically like create their best life and kind of dive right into something that they're passionate about.
That's interesting, yeah, because usually like when you get it, like you're in college or you're getting out of college, like very few people know exactly like what direction they want to go in. It's kind of like, all right, just finished up college. What am I going to do now to pay back my student loans and pay my rent and all that? So it's really cool to like have that somebody to go to help you like figure out what you want to do. Do you focus on like finding purpose or passion, or case by case?
It's case by case. Coaching is an interesting process. It has a lot to do with the relationship between the client and the coach. The research is like if you've got like a good vibe, a good connection with the person you're working with, you're going to be more successful at making positive changes and things in your life. And but yeah, I pulled together working on people's strengths and what they're good at, what they're passionate about, and then I pull a lot on the positive psychology research. And there's kind of like an acronym that one of the researchers from University of Pennsylvania, Martin Seligman, came up with, and it's kind of like ingredients for living a thriving, flourishing life. And he uses this acronym PERMA, and it stands for positive emotions, engagement. So I don't know if you've heard of like flow, or being fully into something where you kind of like lose track of time,
Right.
And you're just kind of like so in the zone with something that you forget that time's going by and you're just enjoying what you're doing. Relationships, meaning, and accomplishment, and so those are kind of like 5 ingredients for living a flourishing, thriving life.
Nice.
We actually, when our friend Chris Barrett was on here, he talked about like flow state when he was like marathon running. Like you just like he's running and then all of a sudden he's crossing the finish line and he has no recollection of like even putting in the effort to run through it and like getting his best time ever. Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, so a lot of times you'll see like kids get lost in play, and you'll try to get their attention, and then they'll be almost like seem like they're ignoring you, but they're just kind of totally engaged in a game. And we find it when we're just doing something like we love. Athletes talk about it as being in the zone, or sometimes you just get lost in your work, and the time goes by, or you get lost, reading a book, and there's some evidence to suggest that those are our best and most positive moments.
Awesome. Do you have any, we usually ask at the end, but do you have any books for like anybody out there, like if they're trying to build more resilience, become more positive, any books like that you recommend as like regular?
That stuff is, the author is Martin Seligman, and he wrote a few books. And he's the positive psychology kind of like guru, and he wrote a book called it's either called Thrive or Flourish, and then for like the coaching business side, I'm reading a book called Resident Leadership, and that author is Boykakis, and he talks about resilience in the workplace, so to speak, and how to be a good leader and avoid burnout. And his basic thing is that when you're overcommitted to like a job that you're passionate about, you can kind of fall into this what he calls like a sacrifice syndrome, just like putting your heart and soul into something and kind of neglecting other aspects in your life. And that's how CEOs get burnt out, or I guess everybody does. And he talks about these ingredients of using mindfulness, compassion, and hope to kind of like rebrand yourself and kind of go from a state where you're going towards burnout to go back into like rebrand yourself as what he calls a resident leader. And that involves like, it's basically, interpersonal dynamics and making connections with people, and being really in touch with the people around you. So yeah, he talks about those qualities as being really central in being a good leader.
I feel like burnout is like a huge factor, especially like this past year. Like I worked so much because like mortgage rates were low. I got super busy and there was nothing else to do. So I just worked, 12, 14 hours a day. I was just sitting there working till I fell asleep, waking up, working out, working all day again. And I got really, really burnt out, for like the first time, like, and I felt like I couldn't catch back up like to how I wanted to feel, and it's just like just needed like time away from like the phone, the email, talking to people all day long. So I was looking a lot into like how to not be burnt out, but really it's just taking that time to decompress, right?
Yeah, I think it's important to take some time for yourself each day. And I really I like routines. I'm big on like habit forming and doing like mini like morning routines, or having a routine in your day, because I think it's easy to fall into just like get up and start checking your email and just dive into work and kind of lose track of time and the structure of the day. So I think spending a little time for yourself, whether it's like in the morning or carving out some time in your day to whatever you need to do, sit and do a little bit of meditation or a little bit of like gratitude journaling, yoga or exercise, sitting and just kind of like just doing some like reflecting or creative thinking, like whatever, just time for yourself. It could be like as short as like, 10 minutes, like in the morning, just like with a cup of coffee or something, but I think it's important to make time for yourself. Yeah. As a psychologist, I think everybody probably says that, but I do really think it's important.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you about meditation too. Is that like something that you teach to people like to incorporate into their daily lives?
I do meditation myself. I'm a big fan of meditation, and that was based off a book that I just read. It was called Altered Traits, and it was how the research has in the last couple of years has really converged that meditation is a good thing, and it changes the brain, and it also changes the ways that genes are expressed. It's this field of epigenetics. So you could be like an emotionally reactive person, and with meditation, you can kind of like change your personality a little bit to be like a less of an emotionally reactive kind of individual. So I subscribe to it. Yeah, I think I don't push things on people. I'm not that kind of like psychologist. But if somebody like brings it up and
if they're looking for it,
if they're looking for it, if it's an interest of theirs, sure, I definitely talk about it, and we'll talk about my own experience if I think it's going to be helpful.
Yeah, I found meditation to be like super helpful, especially with like just becoming centered with everything, right? Like you let your like controlling your mind. It's crazy how many like how you don't ever just take time to let your mind like be free. Like you're constantly just stimulated and thinking about things all day long, and then when you just kind of let your mind be like blank or just see what comes across, it's like it's interesting to see how it all works. And it's hard to meditate at first. It's really, really hard to like close your eyes and focus on breathing and letting thoughts go through. Even if it's just like 5 minutes at the beginning, it's hard to do it for that long.
Totally. It's a practice. So people talk about it as like, developing it over time.
Yeah.
It's like a muscle. It's like a muscle, The more you do it, the better you'll be at it. Working it out, getting it stronger.
And then the last thing I want to ask you about, going back to gratitude again, like you were talking a bit about that. Gratitude journaling, right? So just like gratitude list every day, practicing gratitude, letting people know that you're grateful for them, or actively thinking about things that you're grateful for. Do you have any other like tips on practicing gratitude? Anything?
There's actually a great website about random acts for kindness, and there's a researcher at Stanford University, and his website is War for Kindness, and his name is escaping me at the time.
Did you say War for Kindness?
Yeah, warforkindness.com. He wrote a book. Zaki, I can't remember his last name, but he has these like kindness challenges, and his research is basically suggesting that we used to think of reaching out and doing something kind for somebody can be exhausting and draining energy-wise, but it actually does the opposite. It actually gives you energy and improves your mood. Just random little acts of kindness. So one of the things to increase gratitude and really more so compassion towards yourself is what's called reversing the golden rule. So like we all know the golden rule is like treat other people the way you want to be treated. But a lot of times we can be like really hard on ourselves. Like, we make like small mistakes, or we can be really degrading towards ourselves. So it's like, think about like a recent failure or mistake that when you screwed up, and what would you tell somebody, a close friend or a loved one that made that same mistake?
So treat yourself the way you would treat other people.
Exactly. It's like flipping the golden rule. So you want to treat yourself the way that you would treat other people.
Be like compassionate with yourself as you would with somebody who's going through a hard time.
Yeah.
Or failed at something.
And so like think about a recent mistake or failure that you had, and how would you talk to somebody that was close to you, and talk to yourself kind of like, treat yourself kind of like the same way, and that can really improve your mood.
That's actually really interesting. Like, I think most people are way harder on themselves than they are on other people, for sure.
Totally, we're so hard on ourselves, yeah. But
yeah. I never even thought about that.
We wouldn't do it to somebody else, right? We would be kind, and we'd be, we'd show empathy and compassionate towards other people. But for some reason, we're not so much towards ourselves. So,
got it. Another person that we had on our show, Abby Albany. So it's interesting. She talked about like she was a performer, and she fell from like 12 plus feet in the air, broke her neck, and was paralyzed for,
I think like 6+ months.
from the neck down. They were maybe not going to walk again. And then finally one day, like her toe moved, and now she's walking again with like crutches after a long, she's still in the recovery process.
Yep.
But somebody wrote on our friend Erin wrote on her YouTube video that we had, like, that she, during her podcast here, talked about like 7 traits of resilience, like, overcoming the worst thing that could probably, besides death, like happen to somebody is like a major health issue, like cancer or breaking your neck, not being able to walk. So there's like a lot of parallels with like what she talked about. She's not a psychologist, but just the way that she portrayed everything and what you brought to it on like the scientific side, And for her, she kept a positive attitude the entire time, for the most part, I think, and was surrounded by positive people. So I think that says a lot about like becoming more resilient is your mindset and the mindset of like everybody around you.
Yeah, I think we talked about how positivity is contagious, and surrounding yourself with good people that build you up can be really helpful in resilience and just your life and your mood. If you look around and you feel like you're hanging out with negative people, you start to kind of feel that energy. And yeah, there's such good research on this. And the compassion stuff, not only does it improve your mood, but actually there was a study that looked at the gratitude work, and it helping nurses and first responders avoid burnout. So for listeners that are starting to feel that like COVID fatigue and burnout, and I'm feeling it, and I'm getting that feedback from clients like at this point, it's been a long process, but compassion can, there's some good research on nurses and first responders that compassion helped, or gratitude helped reduce burnout.
Just being grateful to help other people, like being in a position to help other people, kind of thing, or just gratitude for everything, pretty much.
Yeah, thinking about what you have, making a list, so you can do like 10 minutes in the morning, you can just journal, and you can write like a list of 5 things that you are grateful for that you have. It can be something as simple as like, your coffee cup in the morning, or it can be something big like a really important person in your life, or someone that's helped you, or one of your possessions that you really enjoy, or you're really grateful for. But thinking about the things that you have rather than like the things that you want or you're trying to achieve, because the research says that people that accumulate more, like when you make more money, there's not much happiness after a certain point, and it's basically the point of when you have like your basic needs met. So like for people that are like in countries that are like poor and don't have their a lot of their basic needs met, having more money does increase happiness, but to a certain point, and there's a cutoff that it basically the correlation goes to 0. And when people do start achieving or making more money, that they just want more things is what the research
More
shows
material stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like when you make more, you end up wanting more, and so like you're actually, your perception of having more, of getting the next promotion or having like the next nicest things continues to go up, but your positive emotions don't change.
I was listening to that guy. His name is Naval Ravikant, I think. He's a businessman, but he's just a very deep kind of business guy. And he was like talking about desires. The more desires you have,
Ravikant.
Yeah. The more desires that you have, like the less happy you're going to be, right? He's like figure out your one main desire and just make that your desire. He's like when you start building up too much stuff, like you're setting yourself up for failure, like expectations of things, stuff like that. And I really like the quote, the secret to having it all is knowing that you already do. Yeah.
Love it.
It's a good one.
Yeah.
Before we wrap up, can you let us know, we always ask everybody, we already asked you about like books that you would recommend, but one piece of advice that you would give to maybe like a younger person listening to this today, maybe going through a hard time, or anything that you wish that you could you could kind of let everybody know that you want to leave off on here?
That's a great question.
It's always the last question. It's always people are like, God damn.
So I've been reading about like a lot about the science of happiness and studying that during my free time and during COVID and things. And I would say that social connections are so undervalued. So appreciating your friends and making time for your friends and your people that are you're close to, whether that's family or close friends or loved ones. Social connections are so important and undervalued, and live social connections. So not like over the internet or over technology.
I hate those.
Like I think of them as like nutritious connections, which is tricky right now because there's a lot of barriers, and so I'd say that, and then I would say random acts of kindness are so undervalued. So like if you're having a bad day or you're like just feeling stuck, try doing something nice for someone or even yourself. And there's like a lot of really cool research coming out on how random acts of kindness can be energizing and mood enhancing.
Yeah, I feel like it gets you out of your own head. Like you do something nice for somebody else, it gets you out of your own space, or even just asking somebody else how they're doing, right? Like, and generally caring gets you out of like your own problems.
Totally. Yeah.
Awesome.
And where could people find you?
Social media, YouTube.
So I have a YouTube. It's my name, Michael Vitulano, PhD. And my website is michaelvitulano.com. And I also have a group coaching practice. It's called thenvcoaching.com. And that is with my colleagues, Monica Nordhaus in Los Angeles. Shout out Monica. And actually my father, Larry Vitulano, who is also a executive coach. Shout out Larry Vitulano as well. So
Shout out Papa Larry.
Yeah, Papa Larry. So together we are vnvcoaching.com.
Cool. Awesome. Anything else you want to add in?
No, just thanks for having me. And this is like awesome. I love what you guys are doing.
We appreciate
it. And I totally subscribe to like the dream is free because like I had a dream. And I just started like, Googling people that were doing the same thing as me. And, I built a website. The website I just mentioned, you can see that it was self-built. I just tried to figure out what other people. Yeah. And I just built a website and I was like, let's see what happens if I go on my own. Because I didn't really want to work for like a big, like organization anymore. Yeah. I was kind of burnt out on that. I wanted to like go off my own and do my own thing. And so
awesome. Well, we hope we can help promote everything, and then we'll circle back and get you back on one day further down the line too.
I appreciate that.
Yes, sir. Thanks everybody. We love you, and we'll see you next time. Peace.
Thank you.